for the MBA program for executives in San Francisco, California, joined by my counterpart on the other side of the country, Diane.
Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Sharp, and I'm the Director of Admissions in Philadelphia. And joining Barb and me tonight on the back side of things are Taylor Hotsko and Lauren Nash. They'll be monitoring the chat portal, and we would like to encourage you to post your questions along the way. We'll try to get to as many as we can during the program, and we'll have some time at the end as well. So we look forward to hearing what's on your mind, and we hope we get a lot of your questions about the application process answered tonight. First and foremost, we want to make sure everyone knows that we are one admissions committee. We just happen to have two campuses. So we're lucky to have San Francisco and Philadelphia options for everyone. But when it comes to evaluating our entire applicant pool, Barb and I and the rest of the team are in the same room in January and March after both of the rounds. So you're going to hear the same answers to any questions you have, and we calibrate the admissions pool. We're making sure that our cohort is the same.
So jumping right into this, I mean, it goes without saying, right? You need to have a solid academic foundation. And as far as our admissions criteria, we really want to know your professional background, your career goals. We're going to look into your career progression, but we also want to get to know you personally. We want to know your history. Everybody has a story to tell, and we're very interested in that. It's a very close process with the application cycle and getting to know each and every one of our candidates to make sure that you're a good fit for the program and that, quite honestly, the program is a good fit for you. A lot of times I'll say the hardest part is getting started, and we have a lot of different pieces that we're going to take a deep dive into this evening. But just on a high level, we do require that you start an application online, and you can work through that application over time, and you'll submit it online. Also, we do require a letter of sponsorship from each and every one of our candidates. This is something that will be written by your employer, really just authorizing the release time involved with the program. It's them saying they understand the time commitment, and if there's going to be any financial piece, it would go into that sponsorship letter as well. This is very different than your letters of recommendation. We do require 2 letters of recommendation, one being from your immediate supervisor, the other being from someone else who knows you and has worked with you closely. Once you get started with that application, we encourage you to schedule your interview. We do interview every one of our candidates, and that's a one-on-one interview with a member of our admissions team. It's a great opportunity for you to share those kind of things that may not be coming across on paper. We also require a standardized test from every candidate. We do not waive standardized test scores. So you're looking at either taking the GMAT or the GRE, unless you have 8 or more years of work experience. For those candidates with 8 or more years work experience, you also have the option to take the EA or the executive assessment. Official transcripts. We do require transcripts of everyone's academic work. If you've transferred universities, we want all of those transcripts, even post-baccalaureate degree transcripts. We can work with your unofficial transcripts until your transcripts, the official ones, come in, but we want all transcripts as part of the application.
Okay, let's now take a deep dive into each of these areas. So as we mentioned, we are going to look at your professional background and your career goals. How do we do that? Several ways. Of course, we, as Barb mentioned, we're going to interview everybody, and we love to hear your career story. We're going to ask you to send a resume in advance of your interview, and you're also going to upload a resume into your application. We don't have strict resume requirements. We often get that question, can my resume be more than 1 page? Because a lot of, I think, B schools have that. We don't want it too long. We want it somewhat concise, but you guys have more work experience than your average full-time MBA applicant. So a couple pages is fine, but make sure you're hitting the highlights. And we want to see both sides of your background. We know a lot of you come with some good specializations, technical expertises, but we want to make sure that you're also involved in leading people, whatever that means. We're looking for people who know how to get things done through others. So of course we'll have your resume, we'll interview you, and essay number 1, we'll get into the details of that later, but that's where we ask, what are your goals? Why do you want a Wharton MBA? So there's a lot of different ways we're going to get to that information. In addition, your recommendations, because those are going to be professional recommendations. So those are going to really allow some insight for the committee into you as a professional. So a lot of ways, and make sure you're talking about the bigger picture. We want to make sure you are assessing your goals. Please don't be concerned that we're going to insist that you have in 2 years I'm going to do this, in 5 years I'm going to do this, in 10 years that. But you need to have reflected. It needs to show that you've thought about what you want to get out of the program, and that you know that we can give it to you. As Barb said, we have to be the right fit for you. So we also are going to get into your personal background, those less quantitative things, those more intangible things. What makes you tick, basically? We really want to put a face to every application, and that's one of the reasons why we interview you before you submit your application. We don't want to have read all about you and what other folks think about you before we meet you, because then we will already have an opinion formed, right? We want to interview you, let us know your story, share it in your words, and oftentimes people will come away from their interview, that one-on-one interaction with a member of the committee, knowing a little bit more about what we're looking for and what they might want to finalize in their application. So there are no right or wrong answers. We want to know what makes you tick inside of work and outside of work. We're not looking for a long list of extracurricular activities. We do want to make sure you're leading full lives, and we want to make sure that you've had those leadership experiences. We know these days a lot of companies don't have those traditional hierarchical structures, so it may be project oriented, but we really are interested in making sure our students have had those experiences on a professional level and leading other people. So there's a lot involved in that, and of course, being that everybody is interested in earning their Wharton MBA so they can make impact onto their career, whichever direction you think you want to go in, whether it's a small or a big change or entrepreneurial. Make sure that you've reflected and that you're self-aware in that direction.
So I mentioned a little bit about the transcripts, and again, we are going to want those transcripts of all of your academic work, and we can process your application with your unofficial transcripts, but we do need your official transcripts by the time decisions are released. Also, if you have international transcripts or transcripts that need to be translated, please use one of the translation services, whether that's the World Education Service or one of those other services, to have those transcripts sent to us. If you are having the transcripts sent to you at your home directly from your school and then sending them to us, please don't open them, because then they become unofficial. I ran into a situation at one point where someone went to great lengths to get their transcripts and sent a family member a few hours away to pick up transcripts, and he got them and then he opened them. Do not open them. They are no longer official if you open them. So if you get them in the sealed envelope, keep them sealed and drop them in another envelope to us. Standardized test scores, same thing. We can process your application with your unofficial test scores, but we will need your official test scores by the time decisions are released. And I would like to note that we will take your highest test score. So if you take more than one standardized test, chances are we will see that and we will take your highest test score.
And I know some of you are wondering if we waive tests or what tests you can take. We are not going to waive the standardized test requirement. We do know that we have folks in the EMBA space, some of our competitors who will, but for us, because we're going to have the same requirements as our full-time MBA program, we actually feel that it's a little even more important to just sit down, study for a test, and get the rust off. Our applicants are rustier than our full-time MBA applicants, right? You're a little further out from undergrad and you've got busy lives. So you've got to make sure that you have time in your lives to sit down and study. If you're not sure which test you're able to take, as Barb mentioned, you have to be a traditional applicant to take the executive assessment. Let us know and we're happy to sort that out with you.
And that's a great point, Diane. It's a good indicator as to whether you are ready for an MBA, because studying for one of these standardized tests will be the least amount of studying you will do if enrolled in the program. And it's a good time to sit down and think about where you're going to carve out that time to study. And to your point, just knocking off the rust. And it is one piece of the application. So we do take a very holistic view. Sometimes the standardized test can freak people out a little bit. We don't have a preference of one test versus the other. Out on our website, we have links to each of the standardized tests. Check them out and maybe take a practice test for each and see which is working best for you, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. I always try to encourage people to consider these tests your ally, because it is now and it shows that you've got the foundation. And Barb and I, we really want to get everybody prepared to succeed, because once the program starts, it starts with a vengeance. There's very little time to review. You want to have all that reviewing done, ready to hit the ground running. All right, the sponsorship piece that Barb mentioned at the outset. That's definitely something that's unique to our executive program compared to the full-time MBA at Wharton. We need you to have that conversation with your management now. They need to be in it with you. The bottom line is everyone's immediate management needs to say, yep, we know she's applying and we're good with it. Our calendar is online. If you go to our homepage, the homepage of the WEMBA Executive MBA website, you'll get the calendar for May of 2022 to 24, and you can put it in front of your colleagues and say, this is when I'm going to be out of pocket. They need to say, yep, we're good with that. We're not going to interfere. So you can really focus on learning. Everybody needs their letter of sponsorship to say that. And then they can share if they're going to provide any financial backing. Oftentimes it's your traditional employee benefit, which is great. And sometimes it's more than that. Sometimes companies are really investing in their employees and because they have big plans for them. So that is up to you. As we mentioned, the fellows candidates, those with less than 8 years, you need that financial backing. We feel at Wharton, if you don't have it, if you're less than 8 years of experience and your company is not investing in you at least half of the cost of our program, then it's probably a good idea to go our full-time program route, because then you can see what else is out there. We want companies who are investing in their more junior employees. And then the final thing, that support piece, that means they get it. They know why you want this MBA and they're in it with you. We do not have a template for our sponsorship letters. And that is because there are just so many different versions out there. Even within the same company, Barb and I will see different scenarios between employee and employer. So Have those conversations now. It can be a little tricky because sometimes employers think you're going to be bailing on them if you start this program. But if you get their buy-in, even if it's just for the time, it's going to be a really fruitful one. They're going to benefit from you being in the program right away. And if you keep the conversation going throughout your tenure in the program, it's possible that they can really grow with you and offer you all sorts of interesting opportunities. It's a win-win. So we're not going to be able to consider your application complete and give you a decision unless you have that letter. And that is going to be done online via our application. And it has to be on letterhead. So whoever has the authority to sign off on you attending has to sign the letter on letterhead and upload it. We, again, don't expect a template. It's really up to you, and we don't have any sort of expectations on how long it is, but we want them to have a kind of a good understanding that shows you've actually spoken with them. Sometimes it might be your immediate boss who can sign off on it. We've seen things from HR, we've seen things from the legal department, a division head. It's, again, different for each company. So start those conversations now. You never know how long it'll take to get that sign off.
And we do have some examples out there on our website, if you'd like to access them, from some of our alumni who were generous to share their pitches to their companies. Take a look at those, make them your own. It is a conversation, to Diane's point, that you want to be very thoughtful about and really share what's in it for the company. With you being part of this MBA, you're going to grow by leaps and bounds and be able to make greater contributions. And we really want that to be a partnership. There's also a clip out there from one of our negotiations professors. Take a look at that as well. But be thoughtful about these conversations going into it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you take it seriously, they will, and then they will help you make it happen. So oftentimes people are a little confused. What's the difference between your sponsorship letter and a recommendation letter? So let's dive into that now. So the sponsorship letter, as we said, is really about you getting the bandwidth, the support to do this with your company, because it's really important. You want to have that buy-in, whether it's literal or figurative, to do it, because it can be a long 2 years if you don't make sure everybody around you at the office understands why you're doing that. Again, it can be a tough conversation at the beginning, but I think, I don't know how many times Barbara and I have heard, well, yep, I took your advice and I approached my company, and I was pleasantly surprised with how willing they are to do it. And just remember, guys, that with the employment situation out there, is like nobody is interested in losing an employee because they're not supporting them as they want to better themselves as employees. Letters of recommendation are definitely different. These are about why you are valued as a colleague, subordinate, a peer, whatever it might be. As Barb mentioned, we would love it to have your immediate manager, your immediate supervisor be one of those recommenders. Some people are new into a position. Let's say you've been there just a couple of months and that person was happy to bring you into their department, but hasn't worked with you significantly. So there might be an occasional exception. You'll want to address that in essay number 4, why your immediate supervisor might not be the person that you chose. But we definitely want them to be professional, someone who's been your long-term and recent, if not your current manager, and another professional support, in someone who can give you support and insight to the committee on why they value you. And some of you are actually entrepreneurs. You already have your own company. So yeah, you're going to write your own letter of recommendation and to say, yep, I know what I'm getting into. My company's going to be fine and I can make it happen. I've got things in place. And then you're going to have to pick folks who kind of report to you. But I think it's a good idea to pick people, or perhaps customers, who can share why they value you as their provider. So we see a lot of different scenarios. But one thing to think about is you may know somebody who you were on a project with a couple years back, and maybe that person went to Wharton. and you think that this is somebody who's going to be great as a recommender. But if that person doesn't really know you, or that person is too busy to really take the time to go to bat for you, that's probably not the best use of a recommendation. Think about who can really share insights for the committee. It really reflects well on you when somebody takes the time to do more than just say, yep, I know this way and that way, and check the box and move on. Our recommendations are pretty basic. Like, why do you value this person? Somebody who's going to sit down and say, this person is going to be a great addition to your program, and this is why I value having this person on our team. So who has the time and knows what an important piece of the application it is for you?
So jumping into the essays, and I think sometimes the essays can be one of the hardest parts of the application because they really do make you think, right? If you're really being thoughtful about this, you will write and rewrite and maybe have someone who knows you well read it. Our first essay, just asking about what your career objective is and what you really hope to gain out of the program. I mean, that's what we're really looking for here. We want you to tell us how you feel, not necessarily, just what you think we want to hear. So we want you to bring your true self into these essays and really think about, why is it you're doing this MBA? Why will you set this time aside? Why will you make the kind of sacrifices in your life to do this? And how will you do that? So it's really good opportunity to be thoughtful about this process and to tap into those around you in these discussions as you're crafting these essays. And our second essay regarding DEI, we want to know that this is on the forefront for you. You don't necessarily, we don't want you to just make things up. We do want to know if you're involved in any initiatives. We want to know if you're thinking about initiatives or if you have plans, or really how you will behave and what's important to you. So don't feel that you have to be head of a particular committee already. But if you are, please do talk about it. But if you're not, we want to know what your thoughts are and your values when it comes to diversity and inclusion. And this is the essay where, again, we're wanting you to really have had those meaningful conversations, not only with your company, but those people in your life that are important to you that you'll be bringing along on this MBA journey. It's a chance for you to sit down and think about, how am I going to carve out time for this, what's equivalent to a full-time MBA while juggling a full-time career. And many of our students do have families. And how are you going to delegate? How are you going to keep all of these balls in the air? And we're in this essay, we're honestly forcing you to think about that and to plan ahead. The last essay that we have is an optional essay. And we truly mean optional. Only use this essay if you have anything that you would like to explain that you feel you haven't had the opportunity to explain, either through the rest of your application or your interview. It's really for those extenuating circumstances. And we have, let me tell you, we have plenty to read with all of the applications that we receive. So don't use this essay for, hey, I had all straight A's, but I got a B, and here's why. It's really if you have a particular gap in your employment that you want to explain. If you didn't do as well in undergrad due to a particular circumstance that is explainable, that you want to share with the committee. You see it has a 300-word limit. It doesn't need to be super lengthy. It doesn't need to be super detailed. It's just, hey, we're going to notice, as a committee, we're going to notice if there's something that doesn't look quite right with the application or that looks a little bit off. This is the place where you would explain that. Again, it's your voice we want to hear. We know that some people hire admissions consultants and advisors out there, and we understand some people need that to stay on track. But remember, as you're getting opinions and you're getting people to read your essays and you're writing them and rewriting them, at the end of the day, don't lose your own voice in this, because we want to know you and we want you to know us. Proofread and proofread it. Have others who, are good at proofreading read it. There's nothing worse than seeing a grammatical error or a typo in an essay that you've had every bit of opportunity to have someone read. And be thoughtful and be concise. It's, they say it's harder to write a short letter. So again, bring yourself back to those prompts each time. Are you answering them? Ask yourself that question. Read over your answer and say, did I answer that essay question? Have I hit all of those points that I want the committee to know?
Yeah, and I think every year without fail, we get individuals, submitting their app and realizing, oops, I just reread my essay and I found an error. Please don't stress out about it. If it's a minor error, we are absolutely interested in admitting human beings to the program. And if English is not your native language, it's going to be okay if you don't have a perfect essay, because that tells us that you actually wrote it. And of course, you're going to have someone help you edit it and make sure it reads well. But we want to hear your voice, and that's part of it. All right, so most of you probably realize we are just a couple weeks away from the round 1 deadline, Wednesday, December 8th. And if you do submit by that date, you will receive your decision no later than January 19th. And your application does need to be complete in order to guarantee a decision by that date. So as Barbara said, we can have unofficial items like your transcripts and test scores, but by the time those decisions are released, we do need the official ones to have arrived. All right, but February 9th is round 2. It's not rolling admissions, and we every year get what's better. The question, what's better, round 1 or round 2? So of course, if everything is prepared, you're feeling good, you've been planning this, and you're ready to go December 8th, go for it. Make that, get it off your plate before the end of the year holidays. But if you are feeling tentative, or you need to retake a test, or your company hasn't gotten you the final sign off on doing this, round 2 is fine. You really do need to feel good about what you submit, not rushed, because that's not going to end well if your application isn't something you're proud of and feel good about. So we don't fail the class in round 1, all right? So don't worry about that. So if you do round 2, it's March 23rd. As I mentioned, we don't have rolling admissions. So we just get 2 rounds and 2 releases. And as we mentioned, you need to interview before your application is complete. So you're missing out on an opportunity if you haven't interviewed before you've submitted your application, because oftentimes those conversations are really important, and you'll come away with different thoughts after you've interviewed. So if you haven't already, you're going to reach out to Taylor in San Francisco or Alicia in Philadelphia and get an interview on the books. We're doing them all by Zoom this year. We're going to be nice and safe for everybody, and we're all going to interview via Zoom. And the nice thing is, once you interview, you're going to get an email with a little kind of library of class recordings of professors in action, because again, we can't have people on campus quite yet. We're going to be super safe. The classes are quite crowded. Everybody's masked up and vaccinated, but we having visitors from everywhere. The University of Pennsylvania is not allowing that right now, but we're going to make sure you do get an insight into our classes in action, but you do need to interview in order to get that. All right, so here's that slide again. All these different pieces need to be together before you can reconsider your application complete. No particular order, just you know, some things take longer than others, depends on your life, you know, what happens to you in work and at home, whether you get all this pulled together by round 1 or round 2.
And I would say work on these simultaneously. A few of those are out of your control, right? The letters of recommendation or the letters of sponsorship. And we're not going to cut you off if something rolls in a day or two after our deadline, like a letter of recommendation that's out of your control. We do ask that you just stay in close touch with us and you know, be transparent and give us good expectations. If you find that, you know, we realize our deadline is right around holidays, you know, you have your boss is out on holiday and needs a little bit of extra time, please reach out to us. We're here for you in this admissions process, and we want to make sure that it's a partnership. And as long as we know that's coming and when to expect it, hopefully we can get you in the round to which you're applying.
Yep, absolutely. Good, so we've already gotten a ton of questions and hopefully we're answering them along the way, but feel free to post more now. Somebody actually did ask about getting information on how to write a sponsorship letter. It's great that you've got support and your HR department wants to have a template. We really don't. We're happy to give that information, but really it's up to you guys. There is no expectation. It's got to be on letterhead and sign and saying, hey, we know she's applying, we know he's applying. We're going to make sure that they're going to be in San Francisco or Philadelphia based on the calendar needs of the program, and here's what we can provide financially. And once in a while they can toss in a, this is great, we're glad that this is going to happen for this person. So it's usually, you know, on one page and just a few small paragraphs. If you're really not sure, it's a first time thing, you can seek advice from a member of the admissions committee.
And I'm seeing a question here. Someone is with the same employer, but has just recently gotten a new manager and is asking about the letter of recommendation. If you would like to get a recommendation from your manager that you worked with much longer, that would be fine. We just want to make sure that that new manager is also in the loop and that they're, you know, clear and understanding that you're wanting to do this program. But if it's really important that you have the person that can speak very directly with examples to your skills and abilities, and sometimes that's not the new manager, right, that you've been with for just a short period of time. So in that particular case, it's really best that, you know, you stay in close touch with us, but, you know, chances are you could use your manager, especially since it's within the same organization, you can use the former manager.
Yeah, exactly. And there's one question here about how you can confirm that your documents have arrived. So thank you for asking that. As you can imagine, we are getting lots and lots of documents, the transcripts in particular. Those are the only hard copy things that we have to receive. And then your test scores, those you're going to have sent via the GMAC organization or ETS. So how do you know we've gotten them? Well, unfortunately, the system that we have, CollegeNet, you can't know that until after you've submitted. We have so many people starting an application that we can't go in and confirm what's arrived from each application. We wait until people submit their apps to know who's actually applying in what round. And then our team behind the scenes, Taylor, Alicia, and Laura, they are busy processing, and it takes a while. So we do ask that you hold off at least 5 business days after you submit your app before you ping us. Basically, within 5 days, you're going to see all of a sudden on your portal, your checklist, yep, your official transcripts are here. Yep, your official test score is here. All right, so if you stop and email us or call us to say, is it here? That takes our team away from actually processing them. So really appreciate, please don't worry that your application is not going to be considered and evaluated in the round you're applying to. We know that if you've had it sent, it's going to get here. We're going to make sure it does get here. So, and if you've given the right code to our, for the test organizations, it's going to be fine. So submit your application, be patient, and then you'll just keep an eye out on the portal to see that everything has arrived. And that will make things much more efficient, and everybody can confirm that their documents have arrived.
And do know that we'll chase you down if we need an additional document that hasn't come in after a certain length of time. So ideally, hopefully they all come in just in great timing, but we know that sometimes on your end you've requested it, but on our end we haven't received it. We will reach out to you if time goes on and we haven't received it. I'm seeing a question here, Diane, and I know you touched upon this about the difference between round 1 and round 2. So I'm going to jump in and say that there's no big difference in either round. We're going to take the most qualified candidates in any given round. So it's all about quality for us. And that said, you don't know going into either round what that volume or competition is going to look like. We don't know at this point, quite honestly, until after those deadlines. So shoot for the round that works best for you, in which you feel that you can put forth your best application. That is really what's most important. A lot of times I'll kind of encourage people to start working toward round 1, and so that if they can't get everything in by round 1, that they still have round 2 in front of them. But if you do that in round 2, after round 2, that's it. We won't admit another class for another year. So we just admit 1 class per year. And in any given calendar year, we have 2 rounds, round 1 and round 2. So, and we like to see all of the documentation in by the given round.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what, this day and age, it's a little extra, as they say, because even if we find it's funny, people who attended Penn undergrad, they request their transcripts and they don't do it digitally, so they have to be sent to our office, and it goes to a mail room, and then it hits our office, and then not everybody's on site all the time. So it's actually another day or 2 kind of added into everything to get stuff processed. So patience is the key, and communication is the key, and we're going to work with you. And one way to communicate too is via a chat. And many of you have already had that initial phone chat that we often recommend if you just kind of want to get the lay of the land, get some strategy going, see if you're a good fit, run a test score by us. So if you have not had that, our final slide will have the information on how to arrange that sort of discussion. It's different than the interview. The interview is, you're applying, you've sent us your resume, and we're going to talk about your career and your goals and learn more about you as a person. And if you've already had a chat, you do not in any way, shape, or form have to use the chat portal every time. You've already then connected with someone, and you can then just reach out to that person. If that person isn't able to get back to you, actually, we just had one team member leave, just shoot us an email at the address that you see on the website, either to the San Francisco or Philadelphia office, and someone will get back to you. No need to schedule a formal chat. We just want to, again, start communicating. We're going to work with you on to make sure you have all the information you need to put together the application that you'd like.
Seeing a question here about having a few years of work experience and wondering about which round to apply to. And with a few years of work experience, I think, Diane, you would agree that we should be recommending that maybe you look at our full-time program. We do like to see at least 8 years of full-time work experience for the MBA for Executives program. That experience is an important and valuable part of the classroom environment. Unless you're applying as a fellows candidate, and most of our fellows candidates fall not very far under that 8 years, and they need to be sponsored by their company for 50% or more of the tuition. So in other words, if we're compromising at all on the number of years of work experience, it's only because that employee has packed in more levels of responsibility and career than what many of their counterparts have. And we're asking the company to put their money where their mouth is. They really have identified them as a rising star in the organization, and they're grooming them for higher positions. So that would be our fellows candidate category. And again, they would be those who fall under the 8 years work experience. Our traditional candidates will have 8 or more years work experience. It's a very collaborative learning environment. It is the full Wharton MBA in terms of the content and the credit hours and the number of classroom hours. However, our students are career professionals from all different industries and functions and walks of life. So you have all of that in the classroom, and it's a really important part of the classroom in the executive program, because while our faculty are covering all those fundamentals of the MBA, that experience component is very valuable and tends to make for a very collaborative learning environment. You'll learn a lot from your classmates as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think usually our average years of work experience is 12, if not 13, I think it was last year. So, yeah, we have a classroom filled with very experienced, high-achieving professionals. And part of that is management experience. It's very rare that anybody with just a few years of work experience is going to have been a leader and a manager. And someone did ask a question about the different types of management that we ask for. There's direct supervision, there's matrix, there's all that different types of management. And really what we're getting out there is that this is 2021. We know that those companies aren't traditional. We want you to be able to account for the times when you've been responsible for an outcome through others. So it might have been one project, it might have been the dotted line is that, yes, somebody reports to you, you can ask them to do things for you, but you're not responsible for their performance appraisals. So there's just so many different scenarios. Just we want to make sure people have dealt with that sort of situation in their careers to some degree.
I have a question on here regarding the letter of sponsorship, and their company has signed off on the release time, but they're still discussing whether there will be any financial sponsorship involved. And in that particular case, it's okay to state, the employer to state that they're very comfortable with the release time, but that the financial piece is still in discussion or in negotiation. So we would, or to be determined, they could even say. And at that point, if admitted, we will circle back with you to see what the final verdict was on that. So if you're a traditional candidate and applying, it's most important that we have the sign off on the release time. If the financial piece is still being negotiated, it's okay to say that. If you're a fellows candidate, we do need to know that financial sponsorship up front.
Yeah, sometimes our timing and the timing of companies isn't always, in sync, but again, communicate, we'll work with you. And as far as the time frame for scheduling your interview, somebody asked, the sooner the better. If you know you're going to apply to the program, get an interview on your calendar. With round 1 coming up, very few slots are left before December 8th. We're going to continue to interview after December 8th, but you'll need to have submitted your app by then as well if you want to keep your application moving along the process. We can't hold off for you submitting until after the interview if you're looking at round 1. You definitely need to have your app submitted. So for round 2 being February 9th, you can go ahead and reach out. Well, the university is going to be closing a little early tomorrow, so next week we can get you on the calendar. We'll do some interviewing, and in mid-December, and then we'll pick it right up in January through the deadline. And the longer you wait, the less the probability that you'll get your first choice of times. And we're doing it all by Zoom, so there's some flexibility, but it will be during your workday.
Yeah, and just so there's no mystery about that interview, it is about a 45-minute interview with a member of our admissions team or admissions committee. And again, it's that opportunity for you to share those things that are not coming across on paper. It's a one-on-one conversation. We will be asking you questions about your background and your career history, and you'll have an opportunity to ask questions as well. And I know Diane mentioned earlier, we are doing all of those interviews this year via Zoom, which really does help, create some convenience in terms of schedule. So our interviewers have been great to provide a lot of different openings and schedule times, from early mornings to early evening timeframes, and even on Saturdays.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's an opportunity. Some people are really concerned. Oh my gosh, I'm not ready to interview. I haven't done this. I haven't secured that. But an interview is actually a conversation. If you know your career and why you want an MBA, you're ready to interview. You definitely need to have started an application. You should definitely already be starting the conversation about sponsorship and studying hardly for a standardized test. But none of those have to be completed before the interview. In fact, few of them won't be. The interview is just that, tell us what you've done and where the MBA fits in. And our job is to make you feel comfortable, so you'll share your background with us. See, we're still getting a few questions, but some of these questions I see are very specific. So if you're asking a question about, I've done this and I need to know that because of a specific situation that might not be shared by everybody, that's a very good reason to email us. I'm going to go ahead to that slide. We'll still keep chatting a bit, but for people who either want to schedule a chat or email us with a question to schedule a chat, or just email us a question and we'll get back to you via email, please go right ahead. One thing with the chat form, again, if you've already had a chat, no need to do it again via this form. But we use Calendly to support our calendars, and sometimes it means that there's not going to be a chat available for a few weeks. And if you need an answer to your question before the Calendly calendar gives you that opportunity, just shoot us an email. We are going to answer it via email or say, hey, let's jump on a call right now. All right. So please don't feel that you're limited. Again, our job is to make sure you have the information you need to put together the app you want. We do ask that you read the website. That's why we have it out there. We throw everything we can think of out on that website. And we find the more time people spend on that, the more the ahas they get, the more they understand why we're doing what we're doing, why we need people with experience, how to approach your company, what the test that makes sense for you is. So there's all sorts of good information, especially what we call our WEMBA stories. We have a lot of webinars where we feature students and alumni, and we also have a lot of stories on our website that have information about what people have done with their MBAs. So please read those so you can understand that we're not looking for cookie cutter people. We want you to share your voice. There's a lot of good reasons for needing an MBA. It's a very practical degree, but you do need to understand why you need one and what you're bringing to the program. It's definitely a two-way street. We want to know what you're going to share with your classmates, not just what you're going to take away. So do spend some time there, but we're happy to get really specific with you. You say, hey, I got this on my GRE, or I have this many years work experience, or whatever you need to know specific to your case. We'd like to spend that time with you one-on-one versus here where we're going to talk about more general information.
Exactly. And if you're going to have that conversation and you really want us to give you some thoughtful feedback, I always recommend that you send whatever documentation you have a copy of your test scores, a copy of your transcript, your resume, so that any member of our team can really provide you with the best experience with that documentation in front of them. Also encourage everyone to sign up for Knowledge at Wharton and to take a look at our upcoming events. We have a lot of different events that are coming up over the next month or so. Some really interesting ones that are, led by the Wharton School, and some that are admission specific.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully there's something out there that'll you can relate to or resonate with you. This is being recorded. It'll be after, of course, this holiday, this upcoming holiday, but we'll post it. I know there was a ton of information on here. We've got a whole team on the San Francisco campus and the Philadelphia campus that are here to answer your questions. But just make sure what you're pulling together you feel really good about and confident in. Because it's a whole process. It takes a village, and we're here with you.
And again, if we didn't get to your question this evening, we will follow up by email on that question. And you have the opportunity as well to give us a call or schedule a chat, drop us a note. I just want to back up what Diane had to say in terms of this is a close process, and we do want to make sure that you get all the answers that you need.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. We look forward to hearing from you, all right? Hopefully you're planning to rest this upcoming holiday weekend.
Thanks. Good night, everyone.